Hey everyone, Joe Waxman here again. Um, in this video, I want to talk about my father. I haven't made a video in a while. I've just sort of been processing everything everything that's happened with the death of my father and what that's meant to me. And um, it's kind of a big deal. I mean, not kind of, it's a big deal for me because of what he represented in my life. Uh, So in this video, I just want to talk about who he was as a person in our relationship and the impact that he had on my life. And now that he is gone, what that may mean. Um, so for some of you know who my father was, some of you don't. Um, he, when he was young, around 19, he discovered macrobiotics, which is a philosophy that is applied to diet and lifestyle. Um, the philosophy can be applied to everything. It's based in Japanese um, philosophy, thought, um, centered around yin and yang, dialectic thinking, which is where I learned how to understand archetypes from that, and then 5 transformations and so forth, so on, which I talked about before. So it is an archetypal understanding of basic duality, dialectical thought, yin and yang, as it applies to, often we apply it to food and how it affects in relation to the body and to the body, mind, and all that. And macrobiotics was essentially a modified Japanese diet with the influence of dialectical thought, yin and yang, taught by George Sawa, and then his students, primarily Michio Kushi, or some others. And my parents studied with Michio Kushi, Michio and Aveline Kushi, Japanese couple. So he discovered macrobiotics when he was late teens, and then he opened up Scene, which is the health food store in Philadelphia, the first health food store in Philadelphia. And a lot of these early macrobiotic pioneers were pioneers not only in macrobiotics, but in the health food industry, health food movement as a whole. They were some of the first people to open up health food stores and actually get farmers to grow organic foods. There was nothing organic back then. It was this was in the 60s, even before then in the 50s it started. People didn't know anything about health foods or organics or anything like that. Macrobiotics were one of the movements that spearheaded the whole thing, which we now know is huge, and we see it in Whole Foods and things like that. So yeah, he started the first health food store in Philadelphia, pioneer. He's went to Japan for a while. I was actually conceived in Japan with who went with my mom, obviously. And to work there for Muso, a Japanese company. So he lived there for a little over 2 years. I was conceived there, born here in Philly. And he studied and then he eventually started to teach and counsel macrobiotics, and very successful, right? He had a very successful practice, was well known, well respected, highly revered, and made a decent living off of teaching and counseling macrobiotics, and healed many people. So this isn't widely known. Well, I mean, macrobiotics has a mixed reputation, rightly so. The way it seems to work is that people coming off the standard American diet, if they turn to macrobiotics, they have huge success rate, much better than Western medicine. People are have been cured of cancer many, many times, not once or twice, many times. I'm not saying that it's the only diet that has the track record of doing that. People cure cancer in all different ways, but macrobiotics is one of the ones that they come from the Western diet with cancer, and they cure it often, right? This happened many times. It happened with most famously with Dr. Satalera, head of the what is it, Methodist or Presbyterian? I don't know, one of the hospitals in Philadelphia. And he knew that all the conventional treatments couldn't help him, so he came to my parents. My father counseled him. My mother cooked for him. He cured himself of I think it was pancreatic cancer or prostate. I can't remember. But it was pretty bad, and he was going to die. And then he cured himself. Later, he did die because he went off the diet and recurred. But yeah, I mean, people have amazing results with macrobiotics initially. Kids do fantastically. I grew up in, you know, the various macro communities around the world. I've been to a lot of different ones, and all the kids seem to do great with it, right? The problem is that the long-term practitioners do struggle. There's been a lot of cancer and a lot of other debilitating diseases, malnutrition, osteoporosis, certain heart disease type things. Could be lack of B12, which can induce atherosclerosis. But you know, in the early days, especially, the internet was not a thing. We didn't have a lot of this information that we have now. So people were just doing very, trying this, trying that, very experimental. So, I mean, you do have to cut it some slack. And then a lot of these old timers, they just get ingrained. They do something, you do something for decades, it just becomes a way of life, and you don't change anymore. And then they get into trouble, and it's, anyways. My father, so he developed a very successful teaching counseling practice, and he did help many people. And there was this faith in macrobiotics that was very, very strong for most people, due to the success rate of people coming off the standard American diet and having great success, even to the extent that people who were abandoned by Western medicine were cured in following a macrobiotic diet. There are many wonderful things in the macrobiotic diet. I mean, don't get me wrong. I have full faith in a lot of these practices, which are not really exclusively proprietary to macrobiotics, which are basically Japanese traditional food items like miso, shoyu, natto, seaweed, umeboshi. There's so many different things, cooking styles, thoughts about eating. Now we know that as a person ages and as their lifestyle becomes less and less active, grains and carbohydrates are an issue. So to say that, to say that a healthy diet should be grain-based, that's not really what I would say is healthy. It definitely needs to be qualified. For instance, children do well with carbohydrates, but as you get older and less active, especially, you need to limit carbs to become more insulin sensitive. Insulin is the real problem. As you become less and less insulin sensitive, your body produces more and more insulin, which creates all sorts of havoc. And there's also other issues with gut and intestinal issues around leaky gut and over consuming lectins and phytates and oxalic acid, which we didn't really know in the past, in the early days. Right now we have a good understanding of what foods are going to be more inflammatory. These can include gluten, which it's not just for celiac disease. A lot of like gluten in pasta and breads, people really have to be careful. And then there's the carb factor as well. right? So sourdough bread obviously is going to be a much better option for bread. Noodles in broth because of the glutamine, which helps repair the gut. That'll balance out the damaging effects of the gluten, right? Rice needs to be soaked well and then pressure cooked to destroy the phytates and lectins. Peanuts, people often have peanut allergies. That's due to the lectins there. Again, they shouldn't be eaten just normally. You're gonna have to prepare them like a bean, soak and pressure cook. You can do that with rice. I know this is not very conventional, like, people just want to eat roasted peanuts, but there's too many issues with it, so I recommend not to. Same with sunflowers and pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds. But in any case, this isn't about food. This is really about more my relationship with my father. So when my father was young, he was, I have to preface this with saying that the macrobiotic philosophy, as taught by George Osawa, emphasized a bias in the dialectic, which was towards yang, right? Yang meaning contraction, and especially in the way that Osawa defined it. He defined yin and yang as contraction and expansion, because these are abstract terms, and you can change them. I mean, the traditional Chinese medicine way of using yin and yang was different. They use, as far as I know, active and inactive, active being yang, inactive being yin. But you can get different results depending on how you define yin and yang. For instance, if yang is active and yin is passive, then you would say something like salt is more yin because it's very passive, very inactive. However, from a macrobiotic point of view perspective, the way Osawa defined yin and yang, salt was contractive, and salt has a very contracting effect on the body. So salt is yang, not yin. So therefore, you get different results depending on how you use these abstract names. And there's really, and the point is that people often get hung up and say, no, this is the right way to use yang. There is no right way. It depends. It's completely abstract. It's completely subjective. There's no objective truth to it. It's 100% entirely how you define it, right? You change the meaning of a word, it's completely different, right? These are just words. So in any case, the way Osawa defined it, he was biased towards yang and said yang is healthy. That had to do with his, at the time that he grew up, sugar became very prevalent in Japan. People were consuming tons of sugar, and his family and himself all got sick with tuberculosis. And I think a lot of his family died from tuberculosis. And he cured himself through following a traditional Japanese understanding of food, which was much more geared towards yang, contractive eating, which means more salt, more well-cooked grains, beans, vegetables, leaning more towards the vegan side of things, though he was not vegan, but he emphasized the plant-based diet, right? And so the early macrobiotic days were very sort of yang heavy, contraction heavy. So that means people practicing macrobiotics had a very contractive mentality, which meant that, all the things that were associated with yang, which would be hard, dry, overly contracted, restricted, less sentimental, less emotional, geared towards hard work, and it made a lot of the people kind of angry and aggressive, if I'm going to just be really honest about it, like overly hyper intellectual, angry, aggressive, impatient, uncaring, and if somebody like was overly sentimental, they would just be like, oh, you're weak. And I can understand all that. And I do tend to, still honor, because there was a huge swing is what I'm trying to, there was many years in between, decades, in fact. So originally, my father, definitely embraced this. He was practiced a very young style of macrobiotics. We all did, and he was kind of cold and hard and mean. Is what I'm trying to get at. When I was young, he wasn't a very, he was caring and loving, but he was also quite hard, mean, tough, um, cold. It's the truth. And so I can say that when he was younger, he was not a great father. I'm just going to be real about it because there's no point in pretending, and I don't like that. I'm not here to keep up images. I'm here to tell the truth, and that's really important to me. My father was much more concerned about his public image. I'm much more concerned about telling the truth, and I really don't care if you don't like me. Like, I'd be happy to tell everyone to go fuck themselves if it meant telling the truth, and that's how I am. So, but I don't want to offend anyone unnecessarily. It's just that if you're offended by the truth, then please be offended by the truth. In any case, he was cold and mean and hard and not a good father when he was younger. He was very negligent, really distant. There were a lot of things, but the point, it's not the point to make him into a bad guy. As he got older, he grew and evolved, and he evolved his macrobiotic practice, and he did become much warmer, more compassionate, caring, better father, better person overall. He abandoned some of the ideologies of the early macrobiotics, which was that young is good, eating is bad, like more salt, more dryness, more, well-cooked root vegetables, and, that kind of thing. Work harder, be tough, don't be sentimental, be, all the things that you could associate with being like a tough guy, hard ass. At the same time, being hyper intellectual. You'd have to see it to understand it. These early macros, especially, but even still today, many, just hyper intellectual, and that comes from grain primarily, right? Which is very clear if you've done, like, you really leaned heavily into grain or carb diet, and then you go the other way and you learn what keto feels like. And I'm not a keto advocate. I'm a balance advocate. I think carbs are necessary for health. We just need to balance them depending on your age and activity level and all sorts of factors. But in any case, my father definitely became a much better person as he got older, and he became a better father, and we had a great relationship, which is where this is going. I saw him. My father had he had 12 kids in all, believe it or not. 2 died. My older brother, who was hit by a train when he was 12, I was 10, and that was a huge traumatic influence. I was probably the most affected by that. And I do have the 8th house sun and Venus and Scorpio ascendant, Scorpio North Node, Uranus conjunct my ascendant in Scorpio. In any case, that's a very Scorpionic thing. I was deeply traumatized by it. Took me many years to get over, but I did heal. I know that I healed because my anxiety went from, like debilitating to quite manageable. I never would have been able to do these videos during the height of my unhealed trauma. Too much anxiety, way too much. In any case, I saw him more than anyone. I mean, any of his kids during the later years. When we were younger, there was definitely a lot of issues, a lot of, he definitely didn't, it's not that he had favorites, but he definitely had ways of favoring kids over others, doing things for certain kids and not for other kids. And it wasn't consistent. It would change. And every single one of his kids probably has, issues or stories to tell. And this happened that time, that, so I'm not saying like he was better to them than he was to me or vice versa. It changed. It was different at different times. Like he moved away from me when we were younger. He took Melanie and the kids to Portugal. That was very, very hurtful to me, but it was what it was. I mean, you can imagine your father moving away. I mean, my older brother Nathan grew up without him mostly, and that was, I'm sure, extremely hurtful. Um, so, you know, um, definitely there was a lot of negligence and a lot of sort of like, I guess you could say irresponsibility, especially when he's younger, like just sort of having kids and not feeling responsible for them. I don't want to get into the nitty-gritty details, but he didn't do a lot of his duties. He didn't. I mean, so I don't want to, I mean, I was kicked out of the house one time when I was 16 for nothing. Uh, he didn't pay child support when I was younger, so, you know. But as he got older, like I said, we had a great relationship, and I saw him once a month at least. And we would go out for coffee, just me and him, and the reason that I requested that, and I requested it, is because if we ever had family gatherings, there were too many people to talk to him. It would just be a social bullshit fest, and I just hated it. Like, it was really, I just like, I don't like that. As I get older, I just hated like social. I mean, I can tolerate it now. It can definitely have its uses, but there was a period where I was like, fuck that. Like, no. I'm not like, I don't even care if it's family. Like, I'm just not gonna hang out and just talk about nothing for a few hours. Just, I want to see my father, but this is not seeing him. And so I not demanded, I said, like, let's meet for coffee instead, where we can talk. So we did that. And we had great, great talks, just me and him. And we really resonated about a lot of things. And I know we resonated because of, I know how he felt about a lot of issues that he was not transparent about publicly because he had his reputation to uphold. Right. And so what's interesting is that, a lot of people who've taken some of his classes and maybe had some consultations, not a lot, but there's been a few people who've either emailed me or messaged me or comment on social media that, oh, you should talk to your father, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, you arrogant fucking asshole. Like, like, how could you think you can tell me about my own father? Like, you're getting like the superficial veneer of who he is. I'm getting the real deal, and I see him way more than you do. And they're like, "Oh, your father said this, and your father said that," and blah, like trying to like counter something I said. I'm like, you don't know the half of it, and you don't. Like, so some of these, people who think you know my father because you've taken a few of his classes and you've gone to his consultations, and it's been, over a decade. You don't know who he is. So I'm just telling you that because he was, being very soft in his in what he thought and what his real opinions were about things in life. And I talked to him, and I know that who he was as a person, and I know his real thoughts. And we resonated about a lot of things. And so all these people who think you know him and you can email me or message me and say, your father said this and your father said that and he thought this and that. I'm like, fuck yourself. Do it, because that's arrogant as hell. Like, do not tell somebody's intimate, like close family member, blood relative, what their parents or, other, like, that's stupid and arrogant. You're an asshole for doing that. Like, go away. Go fuck yourself and go fuck yourself. So, to anyone who wants to educate me about my father, that's what I have to say to you. Go fuck yourself. You don't know anything. You know what he wanted you to think, because he was very, very concerned with his image, right? And he was very soft about how he wanted to present himself, unlike myself, which I'm like, basically. So he had, especially as he got older, a lot more conservative ideologies, which I know a lot of his clients were, raging liberals. So he had to protect that dichotomy. Because the truth was found much more in the depths, and if you listen to CNN and NBC, which a lot of these macros, they don't know how to think, they don't know how to research. They're just like, they go to some teacher and they're like, what should I eat, what should I think, what should I do? They're just not, they're practically automatons. They're not very evolved people. They're very low level. Sorry, the macrobiotic community is full of very, very unevolved people. It is. I've just been around so many of them. They're just like, they can't think for themselves. They don't know what the truth is. They're just like, yeah, they're just sentimental people, and they need somebody to tell them what to do, what to eat, what to think, how to live. And they're like, oh, your father said this, your father said that. I'm like, oh. So, I did not view my father like that. He was not my teacher. He was my father, but beyond that, he was he was company. He was company for me, and I disagreed with a lot of things that he said, and he would disagree with certain things that I said, but we respected each other and we valued each other's opinions, and I certainly did not come underneath him. I respected him because he was my father, and I always listened to him out of respect, not meaning that I did what he said, but that I wanted to hear what he had to say. I didn't like his unsolicited advice, and I told him that, like, you can't just go around telling me what to do. Like, that's rude and obnoxious, and I'm not here for that, right? If I ask you, that's one thing, but like, I'm not gonna push my opinion on you, and don't push your opinion on me, because I certainly will not accept it, right? Because I knew that not everything he thought or believed or did was what I thought and believed or did. Like, it just wasn't. Like, it wasn't. We didn't have that kind of relationship. I, certainly had my opinions that I held far highly above his. Like, not even in comparison. Like, I don't come underneath him. I don't come underneath anyone. That's not who I am. I study spirituality, and that's not the way to become. It's just not. I'm too evolved. I'm too much of an independent person. I've done too much. I've learned too much. I've grown too much. I don't come underneath people. And so we had this equality thing going on, and that was great. We had a great, fantastic relationship. He was very much against a lot of things that were going on in the modern life, and he had a keen perception of things in the sense that he could see beneath the lies of CNN, NBC, Dr. Fauci, all the especially as he got older, the status quo. He was not for this squirty thing that everyone's like, oh, we need to protect ourselves against this fake imaginary sickness. He knew it was poisonous. I knew it was poisonous. We both knew it was poisonous right from the get-go, right? And a lot of people didn't, and they took it for stupid reasons. They're like, oh, I want to travel, which I can travel, and I still didn't take it. Like, so you just poison yourself for nothing because you're a dumb idiot. Like, and if you took it, you are a dumb idiot. I don't mean to, it's not to offend you, it's just to I wake up, there really was no good reason for it, none at all. So, and so many things like that. Western medicine is full of way before any of this, COVID nonsense. I knew, he knew, the Western medicine was just a shit show. It was a huge scam, like, largely, not 100%, but like 90-some%. It's just all for money, all to get people sick, addicted to drugs. I mean, it's just huge scam, like, to take advantage of stupid idiot people who can't think for themselves. And I have compassion and empathy for these people, but um you know I'm sorry if you don't like my style. This is my style. I'd rather shock people awake, even if it hurts their feelings, than coddle them to sleep with bullshit, sugary. And everyone's got their own style. I got the Uranus on the ascendant. I know who I am. I like to shock people. So, I'm a bit prickly, but that's, I mean well, and just take it as it is because that's how it is. This is my style. So I'm going to be a bit harsh about things in my expression. And I'm sorry if you want a soft, buttery, sugary style. That's not me. And that's not the right way. That's just some people's way. Go listen to them if you can't stand my prickly Uranian scorpionic ways of dealing with things, of expressing things. In any case, yeah, we resonated a lot, and we agreed about a lot more than we disagreed about. And I tried to get him to be open to my approach, which was more focused on a lot of non-traditional macrobiotic things that were extremely healthy, like herbs and spices, largely influenced by Indian culture. But there's sort of like this dichotomy, this understanding within macrobiotics that, oh, we're in the same latitude as Japan, therefore we should just copy Japanese diet primarily, and therefore we can ignore Indian or hot food. That's not really accurate anymore because we live in 2023 and everything is so, we don't live in a traditional environment in any way, and everything's so screwed up, like with the influence of 5G and chemtrails. These are all drying, the chemtrails are desiccants, they dry you out. 5G is microwave, which heats you up and cooks you. And so the climate thing is really different, right? In any case, we do need to take we need to pay a lot of attention to a lot of the things that will counteract these modern health hazards, right? Like the highly potent herbs and spices. But in any case, that's not really the point. Main point of this video was just to talk about my father and try and get some thoughts out. And I think maybe the last video about him was, maybe some people thought it was a bit negative and critical. However, the main intention was to sort of highlight the reasons he got cancer so that other people can avoid it. My intentions are, that I loved my father, right? But we can't ignore, and I hate, and it's poisonous to make excuses for these people who are dying young. And then people keep doing it, and it's poisonous, it's toxic, and I won't do it. Like, it's just horrible. It's like horrifyingly bad to just be like, somebody dies young with cancer, and you're like, oh, well, they had their reasons, there was this and that, but let's just keep doing what they did, and we probably won't die young with cancer. Like, you fucking asshole idiot. Like, you deserve to die young with cancer if that's your attitude and that's the message you're going to spread around to other people, right? Just keep doing the same bullshit that got everyone else in trouble, that they all died of cancer. Like, I hate these people. Like, there's some horrible people in the macro community. There's also horrible people outside of the macro community, but there's some horrible people in the macro community who just want to follow the same status quo bullshit that got everyone else sick, and they'll probably get sick and die young, and they'll lead other people down a path to get sick and die young too, right? These are stupid people who deserve to die young, frankly. If they can't, but I at the same time, I do want them to understand that that's not the right way, that they need to evolve, that they can't just keep doing the same thing. So that's why I do, I am harsh, but at the same time, I am compassionate and empathetic, and I want people to do the right thing. So that being said, where was I going with that? Yeah, we need to talk about the reasons why, and we need to just be really, really brutally honest. My father was too obsessed with, not upset. He oversimplified things, and he thought everything was, well, everything is, you can simplify everything to yin and yang, but he overdid it, and he just said like, oh, the macros who are dying of cancer are too young, and therefore he was just like everything more yin, which got him into trouble. He became weak. Like, we need yang. We need certain kinds of yang. That it's indispensable. Yang is where the vitality is, and you can't grow old without certain things that are yang. And you need also to not just look at yin and yang. I mean, yin and yang is a great and valuable tool for health, but you need yin and yang. Plus, you need to look at, the modern Western medical perspective. Yin and yang is coming from the center out. The modern Western perspective, scientific perspective, is the parts trying to, build the whole from the parts, right? So the macrobiotic originally, orientation is from the center, right? Yin and yang out. We can classify everything from yin and yang perspective, and that's extremely valuable in many ways, and we learn many things way ahead of the curve, right? There are many things that macrobiotics knew way before science knew, and some things that we still know that science has yet to catch up with. Modern Western perspective can get very, very detailed and very granular in a way that macrobiotic perspective cannot, right? We can understand like lectins and phytates, right? And the needs for specific things, like what's specifically doing this and that, by looking at the parts and trying to build the whole from the parts. You need both these perspectives, and a lot of macros become arrogant and foolish in thinking that we only need the macro perspective, which is yin yang, and looking at that from an energetic, looking at things from an energetic, but that's wrong. We need the full. And I was in that camp early on when I was young, foolishly, but I learned my lessons, right? It's okay to be wrong. We just have to change and become right, eventually, hopefully. So yeah, we need both those perspectives, and I'm big on learning all the modern latest cutting edge findings about the different chemicals and molecules and compounds and all the different things, the gut microbiome, epigenetics, all of it, the different practices, cold water therapy, intermittent fasting, carb versus fat burning, keto, animal food versus vegetable food, all the different chemicals in the vegetables that make, when nutritionally, vegans do not do well over the long run. I know vegans are very ideological and that's their main concern, but over the long run, they don't do well. They really don't, and there's no precedence for it. It's a modern, wishful thinking ideology. There are no vegan animals, by the way. There are none. They all eat bugs. I hate to break it to you, and some eat meat when they can, scavengers. So veganism is not a real thing in real life. There are no traditional cultures that were vegan. None. Any that say they were, they're lying, they're deceiving, they don't exist. The PETA lies about it. They say, oh, there's this vegan culture in the Himalayas. They're not. They're lying. They're straight up lying about it. There are no vegan cultures traditionally. None. Vegetarian, yes, but they eat dairy, right? So we do need animal food for our health, right? But so yeah, where am I going with this? There's a lot to learn from the death of my father. I do want to introduce an astrological component, so I'm going to share my screen. I apologize if this is not very well organized, this video. 1 second. All right. I don't know, like, I haven't made any astrology videos for a while because I don't feel inspired to. I've been consumed with health and thinking about what the death of my father means, and it's certainly shifted my mind frame because there was always this lingering doubt. As long as my father was around, he was such an authority, so well respected by myself and so many other people that I was always just like, well, I guess my father must be right, because he's the teacher, he's the authority, he must be right about things. And then since he died, I'm like, okay, well, I guess he wasn't right. So even with the whole carb thing, like, it really didn't hit me until he died. And then I was like, whoa, we really got to start looking at things a lot more closely. Too many carbs, especially for as you get older and older, is a huge issue. It's a huge issue. I want to really emphasize that. Too many carbs is a problem. And macrobiotics, we tend to emphasize whole grain. Doesn't matter. Carbs are carbs. Yes, there are differences in carbs, but you could be eating whole grain and still becoming insulin resistant if you're overdoing it. Plus, when you get into, like, the longer people do it, the more they relax and they just start eating pasta and bagels and bread and white rice all the time. And then it's just, and there's no understanding of how to balance blood sugar, which is a very modern Western thing, tracking blood sugar. The reason I wanted to share my father's chart is because it's really interesting. You can see that father and parent-child relationships often have karmic synastry bonds that are really interesting. For instance, my father and my chart, my father has some really strong conjunctions. 15-degree Gemini, Sun and Mercury, right? His Mercury is exactly conjunct my Sun. My Mercury is exactly conjunct his Sun. That's uncanny. And this is also Algol, fixed star Algol, is here. We understood each other very well. We really did. We resonated, we communicated. When we were one-on-one, we could really have a meeting of the minds, not to mention our moons are trine by 2 degrees. My south node is conjunct his Mars. So I just wanted to point this out. If you want to look at the synastry between parent relationship, child relationships, you'll see a lot of really strong, interesting factors that play into that. Next thing, I just wanted to briefly look at my father's chart. He was a teacher and counselor. He counseled sick people. His ascendant lord is Cancer. His ascendant is Cancer. Ascendant lord is Moon. Moon is exactly conjunct the descendant, debilitated, or in detriment, rather, I should say. It's the correct terminology, in Capricorn. And so this also explains his coldness and neglectful. Capricorn moons have to learn. It's not inherent, it's not innate in them. They have to learn how to be better people because their natural tendency is to just be like cold, unemotional, restrictive, unexpressive, never tell anyone they care about them, never show anyone. I mean, especially with his kids, like with his partners, wives. I mean, I would only have an outside perspective. I can, they'd have to tell their story, but I've seen him spend lots of money on them, much more than he spent on his kids. I'll just say that. But in any case, Capricorn moons do have this tendency to sort of expect others to just be okay with them being cold, distant, rude, neglectful, you know. And then they learn that that's not okay and that they're going to lose people, and if they don't make an effort to be better people, right? So that's a generalization of Capricorn moons, learning how to be more close, expressive, caring, good, warm-hearted, right? In any case, his was in the 7th house, and he also had this Jupiter. And I want to point out, he was a teacher. Jupiter plus 4 days, very slow Jupiter. Okay, Jupiter in Aquarius. Jupiter in Aquarius is very interesting. It is very high-minded Jupiter. Jupiter's teacher of philosophy. Aquarius is kind of quite brilliant, you know. And then Moon in Capricorn, detriment in the 7th. So what did he do? He counseled sick people, right? So if you have a planet that is in poor dignity, remember, it's not always bad if you learn how to use it well, if you get on the right side of things. In the 7th house, that's going to represent other people, and each house is going to represent different things, right? So Moon in Capricorn means sick people are coming to him. He's having one-on-one with people who are less than him, less need help, who are in detriment themselves, who have poor dignity, right? So he's attracting these poor dignity people. Not to mention his partners, okay? People who are less than him. He always liked to have people who are less than him as partners. I know his partners probably won't like to hear that. Don't know how else to put it. It's just the way it is. It's a fact. So yeah, that's really interesting. He also had his North Node in Aries in the 10th house. And so I know up close and personal that North Node, especially in the 10th, especially in Aries, highly, highly obsessed with their career, with public recognition, with all of that. And he was, right? He definitely was. He was a bit delusional at times. He's got Mars in conjunct Neptune in Libra in the 4th, Mars in Taurus. So his efforts tying into the North Node, Aries, Mars ruling Aries, his career efforts, group efforts, career success efforts, were at times delusional, I have to say. Like, I mean, he had very high hopes, but this is kind of like the quixotic aspect where you're chasing windmills. I mean, you know, so he kind of was very enthusiastic about, you know, his ability to sort of, I don't know, he thought his book was going to be a bestseller. I'm relating that to that. I don't know, I'm just kind of talking. It's not really getting to any sort of point. He was extremely driven. I mean, he had his Pluto square Mars by 2 degrees. You know, he's a boomer, Pluto and Leo. Pluto and Leo, boomers, boomer generation. We know that they have this extreme self-confidence. Leo's the sign of individual ego and pride, and with Pluto here, it's like a very destructive sort of egotism, right? And also with Saturn here in Leo, Saturn being the authority, the rule, there's a kind of arrogance and overconfidence. 2nd house deals with values and you know, assets, resources, but also speaking. So this is his teacherly quality, as well as Jupiter here in the 7th. But also his relationship to money was, you know, interesting. I don't want to, I don't know. He was very obsessed with money. Pluto is often obsessed. But you know, powerful speaker, extremely confident, overconfident at times. And of course, Pluto and Saturn both have their the negative as well. I'm sure at times there was a very, very, very deep depression, at times in his life. But the Pluto square Mars is extremely driven. Bruce Lee had this squares, much more exact, but and Mars was in Scorpio. Yeah, it was, so his Mars, but in any case, that square is extremely driven, plus the, when the North Node in Aries. So he was extremely work oriented, career oriented, driven, very intelligent. He's got his Mercury in Gemini, along with Uranus in Gemini, Venus in Gemini. So, even though he's a very Taurian, very sensorial, loved his fine dining restaurants and all the good food and good music and good clothes and all the tourist stuff. Very, very smart too. Very intelligent, very intellectual. So in any case, this is the also one other factor is that his ascendant lord is in detriment. So ascendant lord in detriment, you do have to be careful of your health and your longevity. I wish he'd paid more attention to Western astrology instead of Nine Key, which I have another criticism of Nine Key. All these macros who are obsessed with Nine Key don't know what they're talking about, because none of them are speaking Japanese, or so like they're missing like 99% of Nine Key, and so they're like, oh, Nine Key is the best astrology and blah blah blah, and there's like you guys are just joking. Like, you're joking. Like, you're just jokers, because you're missing almost all of what Nine Key really is, because you can't read the literature. Like, you have a few texts, big deal. There's just Japanophiles. I mean, I'm just being blunt about it. A lot of these macros are Japanophiles, and they love everything Japanese, but that's not good enough. It's not just about what you like. Like, who cares what you like? Like, if you want the truth, that's something different. The truth is something very different from your personal goddamn preferences. Like, grow up. Who cares if you love Japanese culture, right? That's just your personality. Like, get over yourself. That's not anything, right? Study what's real. Study what's really going to have an impact. And if you're a Westerner and you don't speak Japanese, give up studying Japanese astrology. Just give it up, because you suck at it, because you don't know anything about it. And that's across the board. Like, every single person who's like, oh, I'm a Westerner studying Japanese Nine Key, give it up, because you're just going to go nowhere. And it's just going to lead you into nothing, right? It's stupid. It's wrong. And it's bad, because it goes nowhere. Study Western astrology, because there's you're going to actually get something out of it, right? Because you're a Westerner, you speak English, and there's a billion trillion texts that, on Western astrology and videos, and you can learn from all of them. And there's virtually nothing as far as Japanese astrology for Westerners, because Japanese are a very closed culture, and in order to study Japanese, you have to be Japanese, and you have to write Japanese. You have to read Japanese. Well, you don't have to write it; you have to read it, right? So, and you have to speak it, and you have to understand it. So, yeah, all these Japanophiles who are just like, everything Japanese, blah, blah, blah. Get over yourself. Get over your Japanese addiction, because it's blinding you to the reality of things. There's way, if we want truth and we want health and we want to actually have an impact, then you can't just go about your, my favorite thing is this because of my personality, because of whatever, blah, blah, blah. And therefore that's the truth. That's calling subjective, that's confusing subjectivity with objectivity, right? It's like, my favorite color is red, therefore red's the best color for everyone. Well, you're an idiot if that's where you're going, if that's how you go about things. Like, really, people need to stop taking their personal preferences so seriously, and just start looking at what's real, what's the truth, what works, right? And that's how you're going to grow and evolve, not just personal preferences are just good for you, but recognize them for what they are and just put them in their place. Like, get serious, get real. You guys, yeah, that's my we need to, there's too much sugarcoating and bullshittery and like, like soft buttery, like, people are afraid of offending and therefore the truth never really gets told. And I'm just so against that I'm coming from the other angle, and I'm just gonna like, punch bullshit right in the face. That's my strategy. Punch it right in the face. So in any case, that's all I wanted to share about his astrology chart. It'll tell you way more than his 9 key, which he's a 629, if that means anything to you, blah blah. In any case, what else about my father, my relationship? I don't know. Like, I think everyone, he was my father was a huge influence, a huge figure in the macrobiotic community, one of the top teachers and counselors, well respected, well regarded. And this should be a major wake-up call to everyone. Major. Like, really, people need to start changing their practice. I think there's a few things that I think really need to happen across the boards for everyone in macrobiotics. Reduce carbs at least by half, and if you don't know what it's like to go into ketosis, go into ketosis. Do it, right? And then come back, add some carbs back, and then just try to find your balance. Maybe do like one meal with grain or grain products, right? And then the rest with none. Like, this idea that you need a grain or grain product with every meal, that's garbage. Like, we just need to like throw that in the trash, abandon it. It's bad advice, it's wrong, it's stupid, and it doesn't have any place in health going forward. Abandon it. We don't need to eat grain at every meal. That's not true. We can have meals without a grain product, right? And the reason people did it in the past, like this obsession with the past in macrobiotics, is again another sickness. It's another disease, because we don't live in the past. We live in the present. We are not people who have the same lifestyle as the people in the past. Not at all the same. Completely different. There's so many ways, and you're just an idiot if you're comparing yourself to people from the past. Like, you really are. Like, you're stupid. So stop doing that, because we don't live like people in the past. They were way more active, and they lead way more healthy lifestyles, and they ate grain out of necessity. They didn't have fat. They didn't have abundance of animal food or good quality fats, good quality oils. And so they had to, out of necessity, out of survival. If they didn't base their diet on grain, they would die, right? And we don't have to do that anymore, right? So people need different things at different times. Babies need breast milk. Babies need baby food. Lions need lion food. Tigers need tiger food. Deer need deer food. Humans need human food. And we need different food at different times, different stages of evolution. When we're kids, we need to eat one way. When we're adults, we need to eat another way. When we're old, we need to eat another way, right? So things change, things evolve. You can't just be like, traditional people, you're fucking stupid. Shut up. Okay? Smack. You need to, wake up. All right. So we don't need to eat grain at every single meal. That's wrong. It's bad advice. All right? Carbs, limit carbs. The other thing is this obsession with veganism, or little to no animal food. I get it if you've overdone animal food, fine. But at some point you need to incorporate animal food back in your diet, because veganism is not healthy. Restricting animal food for too long is not healthy. It's not healthy. It's not healthy. It's not more spiritual, okay, there's some argument there, even the most evolved people eat some animal food. You look at the most enlightened people in all of history, they incorporate some animal food, right? So I'm not going to go into the details why some even need meat, okay, in limited quantities. Now, how much you eat is up to you, but you know, veganism is a stupid idea. It's a stupid idea for long, or like as a fixture, like as a fixed thing. Like veganism is the right way to eat for everyone. Like people who are like that, like that's wrong. Like I'm okay. I understand the need to avoid animal food for periods of time. And if you want to say, well, I'm vegan because I eat too much animal food, I just need to do it, but fine. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about veganism as an ideology that says animal food's bad and that being vegan is the right way and blah blah. That's a dumb idea. It's dumb. Animals benefit from humans, humans benefit from animals. We need it for health. There have been no vegan societies, civilizations, cultures anywhere, and it's all in how you the quantity, quality, and how you prepare it that matters, right? So we need some animal food for nutrition. Like I'm fully on board with this. Eat animal food, eat vegetable food, find the right proportion and find out what works for you, right? Good quality fish, some eggs, some really good quality dairy, and some meat, right? I'm against pork, fundamentally against pork. I don't think anyone needs to eat pork, and I don't like chicken. I generally don't like poultry, right? I don't think it's on the wrong track for humans beings. We have solid bones, they have hollow bones, right? So they're flying, we're not flying, right? So that's different, right? Mammals are okay, not pigs. Fish is generally a really good source. Small fish that are not contaminated with pollutants, right? Small fatty fish, some really good quality fermented dairy, some eggs. All right. And what else? The third thing is stop frying. These macros who are vegan think that it's this goddamn fry fest, right? You see every single meal, they're like, look how wonderful macrobiotics is. They're showing off their plates every single time it's fried food, right? And they're like, look how delicious macrobiotics can be. Fried food will kill you. It will, because it's carcinogenic, right? And if you're restricting herbs and spices and green tea because it has caffeine, like, you know, the early days, you know, macros recommended, you're going to die of cancer, right? You will die of cancer of that. That diet causes cancer. That diet over long periods of time causes cancer because you're eating way too many carbs. You're not getting good nutrition from, you know, restricting animal food. You're not limiting all the vegetable foods that are destroying your gut health and, you know, causing mineral imbalances, which there are plenty of them because plants have defenses. People think, all these vegans think that it's a free-for-all plant buffet because plants love to be eaten by us. Guess what? They don't. They have chemicals that are bad for us. They do. That's their defense. That's real. That's a thing. And you need to get on board. You need to study this. You need to learn this if you want health. Otherwise, you're just living in delusional la-la land being a shitty vegan. Like, you're not doing anything for your health or anyone else. Yes, there's some benefit to coming to a whole foods diet from a crappy standard Western diet, but still, in the long run, you're going to die of illness, right? So this fried food where you're just, no, like wipe it out. It's not a health food. It's not a regular. I don't care if Japanese eat tempura or, you know, Portuguese. No, it's not a health food. You're going to destroy your health with it. There's no healthy way to do it. Cut it out of your regular diet. You know, if you can avoid it at home and you eat it once in a while out, fine, right? Big deal. Otherwise, your health, you know, if your health is good. Third thing is learning which foods have these things that they're going to destroy your gut health or your minerals, right? The three are phytates, and they're a lot of all grains, beans, nuts, and seeds have phytates. And in small amounts, they're good. In large amounts, they're bad. They will deplete minerals. Lectins, also really bad for gut health. And beans, grains, and nuts and seeds, most of them have them, a lot of them. And you have to learn which ones and how to prepare them. I know in nuts and seeds, so like peanuts, sunflower seeds, and pumpkin seeds have lectins, right? And in grains, most grains except for millet and I think like maybe teff and sorghum. But in any case, soak and pressure cook beans and grains with kombu, right? We used to pressure cook rice with kombu. That was the early style. Then they said, oh, it's too young. Actually, it's way better because it destroys most of the harmful phytates and lectins, so you can eat them better. You can digest them better. And so secondly, we have to, so those are the three things. Limit carbs, include healthy animal food, cut out fried, and that includes roasted, toasted, nuts and seeds that are where you're burning the fat and everything, and baked with oil. Because people, I have to pause this for a second. Sorry about that. So yeah, the third thing was fried, roasted, toasted, baked, baked especially with oil. It's the oils and the fats that when you combine them with dry heat, whether we're talking about vegetables or animals, that's really carcinogenic. So if you're eating animal food, the same thing applies. Like barbecued meat is bad. Flame broiled, roasted, seared, all the way that they do the meats, that's really bad, right? Because you're burning the fats and you're introducing carcinogens. Smoked meats are bad, cured meats are bad, right? But if you do everything wet, whether vegetable or animal, then you're not going to burn the oils and the fats, and you're not going to introduce carcinogens. That's the real problem, right? With disease and cancer. And of course, if you overdo anything, it's going to be bad. If you overdo grains or beans or even any sort of vegetable or anything, seaweed, right? It's bad, right? It's going to produce ill health effects. So I mean, that's basically it. I wanted to kind of add some positive things about my father and share what a great person he was and how much I loved him and how our relationship grew and developed and how much I valued him. It was some of the best times really in my life, having these one-on-ones with my father. They're usually pretty brief. I mean, like an hour. And so if you think about like an hour a month, that's not that much. Certainly his wives always got the best of him, maybe the worst too. But us kids really didn't get all that much. I got more of him because I wanted to spend time with him, and we really resonated about a lot of things, macrobiotics in particular. So I did get to spend a lot of up close and personal time with him over the years, because of my involvement with macrobiotics and his programs and whatnot. But he helped many people recover their health issues, and he was an excellent teacher and counselor, and very smart man. He really saw beneath the lies of modern society. Definitely became much more conservative as he got older, and held views that a lot of these, low-level macro unevolved people would be shocked by. Probably, I mean, because like you can imagine that people who are just like want to live a healthier lifestyle, want to live natural, are going to tend to be much more liberal Democrats, even though that like these are nice idiots, right? Nice idiots. They think of themselves as very nice people, caring, so they think obviously Democrats the way to go. And it's not that Republican is the way to go. It's not about that. This is definitely not Democrat, right? I mean, we have very corrupt, deeply corrupt political, social system that's just becoming even more and more corrupt as each day passes, and I'm sure a lot of you know that. It's corrupted the Republican Party too. There's elements of the Conservative Party that does tend towards more truth, and there's a lot of bullshit on both. There's a lot of bullshit everywhere, but in any case, I loved my father. He was a great man, and he will be sorely missed. And I'm not sure how all this is going to influence me. I I feel like I want to be involved with more than astrology. Sometimes I'm doing astrology and I love it and I'm good at it, and but I'm just like, who cares? Like, I don't know. It's just not enough. I feel like I need something else is calling me. I'm not just an astrologer, I'm more than an astrologer. And so I mean, these are all just identities. Who cares what I am or what I'm not? I'm the universe in physical form, right? If I'm telling the truth, but I don't know. Things are calling me. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I don't know where my videos are gonna go. So I'm just gonna take it as it comes, and I'm not putting myself in a box, and so don't expect me to be in any sort of box. I know my page is called macro astrology. I might change it. I don't know what, but I've been studying more about diet and nutrition and healthy practices and all that. And I encourage everyone to as well. Be very physically active. That's one of the shortcomings of macrobiotics. Do cold water therapy, right? Dunk your, like take cold showers in the morning. Soak your hands and feet in ice water, soak your whole head in ice water, get a snorkel, spend some time in ice water, do cold water baths, get up early, just, be proactive with your health and stay on top of, the modern findings. And reduce carbs by a lot. Like really just only as much as you need to eat carbs. That's how much carbs you should eat, and eat them with other things, fats and vinegar, and don't eat plain carbohydrates, right? In any case, guys, I think that's it for now. Understand that I'm not a follower, and I'm not going to say things like everyone else, and that's why some people are a bit thrown off by me. I do get my fair share of criticisms because people don't like how I express myself, and that's okay. I expect that. Understand that, if I'm calling people stupid or idiot, it's just really a wake-up call. It really means pay attention, get your head out of the sand, stop being an ostrich, wake up. Wake up. That's really what it means. Wake up. So don't be offended. I really care about everyone. I really want what's best for everyone. And I care much more about the truth than being liked. I care much more about the truth than, painting some pretty picture that everyone can just lull themselves to sleep by. Being offended is better than being deluded. Really, it really is. So that's where I'm coming from. All right, that's it for now. I don't know what my next video is going to be, but thanks, guys, and I don't know. Take care. Bye.